So why does the correct order of makeup even make a difference? If you get the order of your makeup correct, it means you're going to avoid streaks, cakiness, and unevenness. Different products have different formulas, and that means that they may need specific environments to perform in the best possible way. Ultimately, you need a smooth canvas before you even start with makeup application. So this is the part where you need to add all of your usual skincare. Now, my skincare is not going to be the same as yours, so I've already applied mine, and I'm hoping that before you get started with this video, you've already got yours on too. If you struggle with anything like your makeup coming off or pilling or just generally coming off the nose or anything like that, then this video is for you. The first step is to use a primer. This is a crucial step to ensure that you're going to smooth your canvas and just kind of like get it ready to get hold of that makeup and also keep it in place all day. Not only that, it also helps to work as a barrier between your skincare and your makeup. Now, the type of primer you use is really, again, tailored to what you need for your skin. Now, it may be that you need a hydrating primer. You could need a primer that is going to help to blur your imperfections, flaws, and also help the pores to look a little bit kind of smaller in size. Therefore, you go for a blurring or a smoothing primer. Then you've also got a primer which really helps with kind of oily skin, so it helps to mattify the skin. If you feel that you get a lot of oil that comes through during the day, then go for a mattifying primer. Now, I kind of alternate between different ones. I sometimes use a hydrating primer, I sometimes use a smoothing primer, and sometimes a blurring primer. Today I'm going to use a hydrating primer. I have my NARS light reflecting hydrating primer because I do want something that's going to kind of give me not lit from within glow, because I feel like it's actual makeup products that do that, but I do feel like this is a really good one to give me that hydration but also just brighten up my skin tone a little bit, ready for the makeup that I apply. So I'm going to go ahead and apply this. I've got a small amount, like less than a pea-sized amount, and I am going to smooth this over my face. And this first step is great at just kind of like almost you're priming your canvas. So if any of you guys watching paint, then you know that when you have a canvas, when you paint, you're always going to prime it first before the paint goes on. And that's basically what we're doing here. And if you are not an artist, then don't worry, I will explain now. What this means is you are basically getting your canvas ready for the next step. You're making it, your canvas, be as kind of like, you're correcting any imperfections that it may have before you've even started with makeup. So for example, like I mentioned, if you have like very uneven skin, like your skin is a bit bumpy, you want to go for a smoothing primer. So that's going to really help to prime your canvas before you even go ahead with your makeup. It ensures that you're kind of targeting any issues before you've even gone in with your makeup. The next step is treatments. So this is where you are going to be treating any issues or areas of concern that you may have. So the areas of concern could be you have a bit of redness, or maybe you have dark circles and you've got like pigmentation issues in like dark areas, like patches everywhere or in certain areas, and you want to correct that. So if you are going to be correcting redness, then you would go for a green color corrector. Now at this point, the reason why this is important to slot into in this section is because this should go on before you've applied any makeup, but after your primer. Now the reason for that is because your skin is prepped and primed, ready to go with makeup, and this is a makeup product. But what this is doing is this, it's also kind of like correcting any mistakes that are more to do with discoloration than the texture of your skin. The primer was there to help with the kind of texture, to smooth it out or hydrate it or just blur it. This treatment is basically here for you to deal with the discoloration. So if you have redness or if you have dark circles. Now I don't really have redness, but I do have some dark circles that we really want to try and kind of just do our best to get rid of. So I'm going to be using my Kosas Revealer Extra Bright, and this is in the shade Alchemy, and it's like this really kind of like orangey kind of color. So what we're going to be doing here is applying this on certain areas that we have that darkness. Now, where do I have the darkness? There's a couple of areas. I do feel like I have a bit of darkness around here, so I'm going to apply it there, and then also my dark circles here. Now, I don't want to really go crazy with this. I just need a small amount. Now, I want you to remember this when it comes to color corrector, you really just need a small amount. So we're just going to do a few dots here. And then we're also going to do a few dots there. And then you're going to see this color come to life a little bit now when we start blending it. I am going to blend it with this. This is my Sephora O2 concealer brush. So what I'm going to do here is just kind of press this into the skin. Now I'm not kind of moving it around, I'm literally dabbing. Now you will notice that I actually applied this along the groove of my under eye, not directly on the under eye. And the reason for that is because that's really kind of like the area that it's gonna help to kind of brighten. So what this color does is it helps to actually neutralize the dullness and the kind of dark shade that we have there. It's helping to brighten it up. Now obviously you're not going to see the results of it immediately. It works with your concealer and foundation. So we're going to just do the same thing here, and we're just kind of patting this in. Okay, I'm happy with that. We're going to just do this area here. And this is another reason why you really don't need a lot of this. A little goes a long way. And don't worry about it looking orange. That's all going to get covered. You're not going to see it through the makeup. Your face will not look orange, trust me. I actually have spoken about color correctors in my newsletter recently, so you might want to head on over there and subscribe to it, because there's a whole load of newsletters there which are about makeup, beauty, hacks, tips, tricks, the best products, everything, really detailed. And by the way, all the questions that you have that you leave in my comments on the YouTube channel, they actually get answered over there via newsletters, so you might want to head on over there. It is free, but there is a paid version which I would suggest going for, because it's literally just going to cost you less than getting yourself a latte a month, and that gives you access to the whole site, and we get a chat room. So yeah, I'll see you there. Moving on to the next step. Next is your base. So foundation. So this is where we're going to apply a thin layer of foundation. Now you want something which is medium coverage. You really don't want something that is going to be super heavy unless you really like that look. I honestly feel like a lot of people are under this misconception that in order to get the most flawless finish, you have to go for the most full coverage foundation. And yes, you will get a flawless finish, but it's also going to look very cakey and very easy to transfer as well. And very mask-like. You have various different foundation types. So you have liquid, you have cream, you have powder, you've got tints, which kind of falls under a liquid. You really need to figure out what is suitable for your skin. So what is it that you want? Do you prefer a certain formula? Some people prefer to stick to a formula because they like that type of formula and they prefer it. For example, someone might stick to a cream foundation. Always remember that each formula is going to have a different finish for your skin. So a liquid formula is going to give you kind of more versatility to be able to like figure out what kind of coverage you want. You can always build it up and layer it to get, you know, more coverage. But then if you're using a cream foundation, you are always going to get a little bit more coverage than what you would do with a liquid foundation. So it's a bit harder to kind of make it look natural. You are going to get that kind of thickness on your skin. And then if you're going for a powder, that's something that is a very different kind of order of makeup, because obviously it's a powder, right? So we don't necessarily need to bake or set and all that kind of stuff. That we're not going to use today, but that is going to give you a very matte finish throughout the entire day, and it's probably better for someone who has excessively oily skin. So today we are going to be using a liquid foundation, and I'm using my EX1 Invisiwear in number 6. So what I'm going to do here is get a pump of this on the back of my hand here. I have got my brush here, and this is my BK106 brush. There is a discount code Nina10. Use it because you're going to get a sneaky little discount off this. It is really important how you blend the products into your skin, as well as the order. So as much as we are focusing on the order of makeup today, it is really important that you learn how to blend it properly as well, to get the most out of kind of each product and make sure it's streak free, cake free, and just generally kind of like looks very natural on the skin. So we're going to go into some of this product, take it to the side and buff it into this brush, and we're going to go ahead and go all over the face. Now I want you to ignore the fact that we have color corrector underneath. Trust me, ignore it. Just apply this as normal. I don't want you to spend extra time trying to cover up the color corrector with this. I just want you to apply a thin layer all over, and I don't want you to focus on trying to cover the color corrector. You just want a nice thin layer of foundation all over. You want it to be even all the way across your skin. So just focus on that. each time you really want to buff the foundation into your brush before you buff it into your skin. There you go. There you go, done. Now, I generally don't apply foundation over the eye area, so that's why I've kind of like left that out, but it's kind of gone over a little bit, but that's fine. The next step is concealer. Now, again, there are different formulas of concealer available. Now, if you're gonna be using a liquid concealer, then you're gonna get medium to full coverage. It really depends on the brand that you're using. If you're using a cream concealer, so something in a pot, it's very opaque, you are going to get that immediate coverage. Like, you're not going to have to keep layering it on, and it is going to be a little bit more thick and cakey, similar to how I was discussing the foundation formulas. Those are the two main concealers I believe that you get. I don't really use any other formula of concealer, but again, I would probably stick with a liquid because it is going to give you, like, again, you've got more control over how heavy you want to go with it. So the concealer that I'm going to use today is my Tarte Shape Tape, and this is 38N Medium Tan Neutral. Now I just want to add here that this color is actually not overly bright for my skin. It's actually quite close to my skin color. I would suggest, if your order of makeup is going to be what I'm showing you today, is to go for something which isn't overly bright, because if you go for a concealer which is too bright, and I know you may like that brightness around the eyes, then the problem is because you're applying it after your foundation, it's very easy for it to look disconnected from your foundation. So if you want to go for like real brightness on the under eyes, I would suggest a different order stroke method of makeup application. For example, I would suggest using the underpainting technique, which basically means applying all of your concealer, blush, all that kind of stuff, contour underneath before you've even gone in with foundation, and then your foundation goes on after, and then you set everything. That is a different method. I do have videos on this, but if you do want to see a detailed video on underpainting, let me know in the comments below. Comment underpainting so that I can really easily see how many of you guys are actually saying that you want to see that, and we'll do a video for you. Let's go in with our concealer. Like I mentioned, this is a color which is very similar to my skin tone in order for it to look like it blends seamlessly into my foundation. So I'm going to take this to the back of the hand. Now I do prefer to apply this with a sponge. Sometimes I apply it directly on with the wand. It's really down to personal preference, but I'm going to leave that to you to decide. I have my beauty blender here. It is freshly washed, nice and damp, and we're going to go into this concealer. And the first thing I'm going to do is actually go onto my eyelids, and I just usually go a little bit on each side so that I can then just blend it in. And I'm just bouncing the sponge. And again, your technique of how you apply this, your blending method, is gonna make a huge difference with how this looks on the skin. Eyelids are done. I just very quickly want to tell you that the first thing I would do here is set this. I don't want to like kind of do this and do the rest. Let me explain why. I've got my powder puff. I'm going into my powder, which is my Easy Bake from Huda Beauty. This is the banana powder. I am going to just press onto my eyelids the powder, not a lot. I only need a small amount. Now I've got my Real Techniques brush, and I'm literally just going to dust away this powder. Let me explain why this is important for you to do before you even move on with concealer on the under eye area or anywhere else. The reason being is because obviously you're looking around, you're looking in the mirror, you're going to get the creasing that develops. So to save yourself that extra headache and extra work of having to try and get the creasing out before you go in with the powder, I would suggest just getting this area out of the way. So that for me is the correct order, because it may take a little while for you to maybe get used to this order, because, you know, if you're not doing it already in this order, then obviously it will take you time to get used to it. But trust me, it's going to become second nature, and it's going to make your life way easier. Because if you don't do this now, what happens is I've applied concealer there. I'm going to go ahead and apply it everywhere that I need it. By the time I've applied it everywhere, this is developed creasing. I'm going to have to take that out. I'm going to have to then powder it. And then by the time I've done that, this is developed creasing. So you're saving yourself a lot of headache this way. So, okay, I am going to now apply some more concealer to the back of my hand. This is going to obviously help to target areas like our under eyes and anywhere else that we want to kind of like cover up any blemishes. So we're going to go in with the sponge. We're going to get some product onto the sponge. And now this is where we're going to go along the under eye area, and you're going to see that all of this color corrector is going to disappear, but it's also helped to kind of brighten the area. And I would say color corrector on dark circles, if you are going to be applying a kind of concealer which isn't overly bright, is actually a really good idea, because you're helping it to brighten it up without having to rely on just a much brighter concealer, you know? So immediately you can see how it's just, you can't see the orange anywhere. Do you see what I mean? And this is why it's really important to trust the process. And obviously my kind of shape that I'm doing is going along here and then going up so that it kind of lifts a little bit just on the edges of the eyes. I'm just adding it to any other areas that I just want a bit of extra coverage. And that's it, I'm kind of done. The next step is sculpting. So this is where I'm gonna add some shape to the face and add some depth. So I want to be able to bring out my cheekbones, maybe sharpen my jawline, maybe slim down your face a little. This is the time to do that. I am gonna use a bronzing sculpt. So what this is kind of like a hybrid. It's a bit of both, because the color is kind of like not too warm, but it's also not too cool and gray. So it does give me that nice kind of contour, but at the same time it is slightly warming to the face, but not overly warm, basically. So I'm using the Makeup by Mario Soft Sculpt Shaping or Bronzing and Shaping Serum in medium. Now I'm going to take this onto the back of the hand. I'm going to get a little bit of this like that. I'm going to go into my Makeup by Mario F4 brush. I'm using the small side. I'm going to grab a little bit of that product. You don't actually need a lot. And I'm going to just take this along the cheekbones here. So I'm kind of going from the top part of the ear and then gradually patting it in. And you only actually need a small amount, because I feel like this really does give you a nice kind of, almost like just that nice sculpt there, which isn't overly heavy. And it also keeps your skin from looking like cakey, because it kind of like just is so light on the skin. You don't even, you kind of see this kind of shadow appearing, but you're like, it's not actually adding a lot of makeup. So I'm just gonna go along the perimeter of my face, because I do like to warm up the hairline area, just so that it helps to slim down my face on the side. And obviously if you wanna go underneath the jawline, there you can. You can even go on the side of the nose. There you go. And it just adds a bit more shape to your face. Next, we're going to apply a cream blush. Now, there are a few different formulas when it comes to blush as well. You can go for a liquid blush, you can go for a cream blush, or you can go for a powder blush. Now, obviously, if you're using a powder blush, that will go later on after you've set your makeup with powder, because the two textures are not going to mix well together. The formula that I'm going to use is a cream blush today. Now, I sometimes like to use a much more transparent blush, and in which case I usually then tend to go for like the milk jelly, cooling water jelly blush, whatever it's called, because it's very transparent. But sometimes I do want a little bit of more extra pigment, and that's when I go for like a cream blush, because I feel like I really get that. Now the color I'm going to use is Pink Peony from the Makeup by Mario Soft Pop Plumping Blush Veil. There are two ways to apply this. You can use a brush or you can use a sponge. If you use a sponge, I'd recommend it being damp and using the round end part, so like that part, not the point. Use that part and just bounce it onto the cheekbones. Or you could use a brush and you kind of like just press it onto the skin wherever you feel like it. Now I am going to use a brush. I'm using my Hourglass 15 brush. This is a really nice pink, and I'm going to take this just along this area here. I haven't used this color yet and I've been so excited to use it. Oh, it's so nice. It's actually a really nice color. Look at this color, it's so pretty. Okay, see how we've just kind of like taken that along that area there? Now obviously you can go as high as you want. If you want to go on the cheek, like the apples of the cheek, you can. I like taking it quite high because I find it's actually really lifting, and I like that. And yeah, there you go. Really pretty color. So happy with that. I really feel like I could even go more. It's such a nice color. Wow, so in love with this color. The next step is powder. This is where we set everything with powder. Now, what this powder is going to do is help to basically lock everything we've done in. Now, there are a few different types of powder available. Now, ultimately, I would always recommend going for a loose setting powder. This is going to really help to lock everything in. There are other powders available, such as pressed powders and all those kind of like powders. Well, actually, there's just pressed powders, but I would not suggest using a pressed powder to set your makeup unless you have very mature skin, in the sense that you feel that your skin is very dry and you feel like a setting powder is a little bit too heavy for you. The only pressed powder I would recommend is the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Finish powder, and I find that that's good primarily for the under eyes on people with very dry skin and very wrinkly skin, because it does help it to not look as cakey, but you only need the smallest amount, and you could use that to set that area. But I personally prefer using a loose setting powder. There are various different setting powders in terms of brands available. If you want something which is not very heavy, I would go for a very finely milled powder. Something like the Makeup by Mario Surreal Skin Soft Blur Setting Powder is very good. I also like the Laura Mercier Translucent Ultra Blur Powder, and I also like the Makeup Forever HD Skin Setting Powder. The one that I'm going to use today is the Huda Beauty Easy Bake in Banana Bread. This isn't as finely milled, but I do like how it keeps my makeup in place all day. So I am going to be using this one today. So what we want to do is we want to basically dip into this powder here, right? So I've got my puff and I'm using my Makeup by Mario puff. We're going to dip into this and we're going to just dip onto the hand just to make sure that it's nicely covered all over the puff. I don't want to apply it and then you see a whole load of powder. It should not look like that. Now, before we do this, I want to grab hold of my sponge. I want to use the tip and I just want to get rid of any creasing that is settled in those fine lines very close to my lower lash line, because I know, I don't even need to look at it to check because I know it has, because I have lines there and it's inevitable. So now that we've taken it out, we can now go in with this powder. So we're just pressing it on the under eye. There you go. We're gonna go along this side. Now the under eyes are done. It's up to you where else you want to apply this powder. Personally, I would apply it along the jawline here, like this lower part of the face, and anywhere that you feel that your makeup comes off. So that could be everywhere. It could just be in certain areas. What you could do is just apply it with this puff on your under eyes, and then basically get a big brush such as my Makeup by Mario F2 brush, dip into the powder, and then just dust over the face. Now, once you've actually pressed it on with a powder puff, by the way, you can dust it off with a brush, which is kind of what I'm doing here. You can use the smaller side to just take it off from your under eyes. And see now that we've applied the powder, but we can still see that nice blush coming through. We've still got that very soft sculpt coming through. So everything's gonna stay put all day. The next step is brows. Now what I'm gonna do here is add my Urban Decay Slick Day Brow Gel. Now the first step of my brows is actually just getting them set so that they don't move around. There's very quickly something that I want you to do, and that is get a wet wipe or a tissue and just wrap it around your finger and just go over your brows to make sure there's no kind of powder or makeup, because trust me, even though they look clean, there probably is. You want them to be nice and clean before you do this. Now I'm going to take this gel and just really kind of move it around so that it's going back and forth in between all the hairs. There you go. And then we're going to just comb it up to the side. By the way, if there's one thing you do today, please could you like this video and hit subscribe if you haven't already, and also just hit that bell button because it means you don't miss any of my future videos. Those 3 little things helps my video to actually perform better, and it really does help my channel. So if you get anything from my videos, I'd really appreciate you doing that. Okay, so now that we've brushed it up diagonally, I'm gonna actually press them so that they stay put. And that really helps them to just almost that laminated effect they just stay put all day then. There you go. Do you know, I just realized I didn't put my earrings on. So while that brow gel is just drying, I'm gonna put my earrings on. There you go. I was like, something's missing. I always like bring them with me on my desk here to get them on. And then half the time I forget. Now we can move on to the next step of doing the brows, and that is using the brow pen. Now I really like this brow product. I just think it's like you've got the pencil and the pen on both, like either side, so you can use both, and the pen side is actually really good. So this is the Urban Decay Brow Blade in Brunette Betty. Now all I'm gonna do here is just draw in some hairs from the under part of my brow. The brow really does help to frame the face, and all we're doing is kind of like replicating the hairs just so that you don't end up with a fully drawn in brow. And the thing is, when you have sparse brows like mine, I know you're still going to be able to see, you know, like the hair, like the sparse bits. So this isn't like a solution for it, but it definitely is a way to keep them looking kind of pretty, well, as natural as they possibly can, if that makes sense. So we're going to flip this over and use the pencil side now, and this is where we're just going to kind of mainly shape it from the bottom. So it's kind of hair strokes, but not necessarily going in the same direction as these, like what we did with the pen. And then we're really kind of shading in the areas that we clearly have no hair and it's a bit more obvious. Okay, so I'm happy with that brow. Let's move over to the next. See the difference? Like we've just got the hair strokes here, and it's fine, I could live with that, but there are areas which are so sparse because there's literally no hair there, and it's very, very obvious. So all this is doing is just kind of like sharpening it and also just filling in the areas that unfortunately I have no hair. Okay, so brows are done. The next step is eyeshadow, and this is where it's up to you what type of formula you use. We have powder eyeshadows, we have cream eyeshadows. Oh, and we also have stick pencil form eyeshadows. So it's really a case of like what suits you better. Like what do you find you prefer in terms of the finish? Like do you prefer powder eyeshadow finishes or cream or pencils, or do you prefer the blending side of it? Or is it a bit of both? Like is it, for example, that you like a cream eyeshadow because you like the finish of it, but it's also much easier to blend? Or it could be, which one's more important to you? How you blend it, how easy it is for you to apply, or what it looks like on the skin, you know? So I would suggest that if you are dealing with wrinkles, fine lines, and just general bad texture around the eye area, I would probably recommend using cream, but being strategic with where you place it, because with powder, it can end up actually enhancing the areas that you're trying to kind of disguise. And powder is always a little bit harder for you to blend. So cream's always going to be very easy. I am going to show you cream today. I'm using my Charlotte Tilbury Eyes to Mesmerize in Star Gold, and I'm going to use my finger because it's honestly the easiest way. You only need a small amount, and we're going to just take this on the back of the hand to make sure it's nicely spread over my finger, and then we are just basically going to go over the lid. And the great thing with this kind of cream eyeshadow is you can just keep building it up, and I like to focus on the middle part of the lid because I feel like that's, especially when it's like a shimmer like this, but because that's where you're really going to see the effect of a metallic finish every time you blink, you know? So you want more of the product along the center. There are other ways to be very experimental with where you apply it, but I'm just saying for a general application, I think this is a good shout. So you can see I have very short nails, and this really helps with makeup. So if you have longer nails, it is going to be harder to do this, just an FYI. So you might want to use a brush, in which case. So we're going to apply this, we're going to let it kind of set. It's going to set itself and it's going to look pretty good. Now something you can do on top of this, because a little trick for you, you can use a powder shimmer eyeshadow on top. So we're going to go into this one here. This is actually from the Sensual Sunset palette from Charlotte Tilbury. Got it on a different finger, and we're just going to press over that middle bit. And what this does is it actually sticks to the cream eyeshadow. So before it blends, do this. There you go, just pat it and you're done. It gives you that extra sparkle. Now on the other finger, I've still got that cream eyeshadow. You can touch the lower lash line with the tip of your finger. I usually just do whatever's left on my finger. I don't go in with extra product. I would really recommend, for example, you know where I applied that powder eyeshadow in the center? If you're doing like a bronze eye, try using a different one, like maybe like a teal color right in the middle on top, and it turns into this like really nice bronzy teal. It's actually really nice. I should have done that now, but it's too late. The next part is curling your eyelashes. It is really important to curl them before you put your mascara on, because it's a game changer for how your lashes are going to end up looking. Your mascara is going to look completely different if you curl your lashes. I have got my Hourglass Unlocked mascara here, and I am just going to go ahead and apply this to the lids, to the eyelashes, sorry. Such a good mascara, isn't it? Okay, let's get a little bit on the lower lashes. The next step is going to be lips, and this is where we're going to help to line the lips and fill them in and just finish off the kind of look before a very last step. We're going to get my Dual Lip Maximizer. You can put this on right at the beginning if you really want to. I tend to put this right in the center of the lip, not all over, and then just spread it out like that. That's kind of like my almost my moisturizer for my lips, and it keeps my lips hydrated. I'm going to use my MAC lip pencil in Hodgepodge. I'm going to blot my lip first to take off the excess. There you go, I'm going to line my lips. Next, I'm going to use a cream lipstick. So you have different formulas for this too. So you've got liquid, cream, I think those are the two main things. Yeah, and it's up to you which one you want to go for. I personally love this one. I feel like it lasts all day, and I feel like it doesn't dry my lips out. And I really like the finish of it. This is the Anastasia Lip Velvet. There are two shades I'm going to use. So this one that I'm using now is Peachy Nude. I take a little bit of that. I don't go all over, I just go on the bottom lip. Go like that. Then I'm going to take this color. This is Hush Rose, and I feel like I just want a little bit of this. There you go. You're going to get a lip brush, and you're now going to blend this into the lip liner. You can use a tissue to blot. Next step is finishing touches. This is where you just want to see, is there anything else that you really want to add? Do you want to add maybe some more blush? And I wouldn't go with the same formula because obviously you've already set everything. So you could go on top with a little bit of powder blush if you want to, or maybe some more bronzer or something like that. I am going to use a highlighter now, and I'm going to go into, this is my Hourglass Ambient Lighting Edit palette. This is my special edition. This is the Barney's New York edition when I went to New York for Barney's and Hourglass. And you want to get a brush which is something which is light. I'm going to use my Hourglass Edit brush, and I'm using shade 3 in this, which is the highlighter shade. And I'm just going to add this to the peaks of my cheekbone right there. There you go. Just up there, that's enough. I don't want it anywhere else. And that is my finished look, guys. What do you guys think? I really hope you've enjoyed this whole video on the order of application. And now you know exactly what goes where and exactly why it goes there and what different formulas you have. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments. And don't forget that everything's listed in the comments. You just want to hit on the link, and then that's going to take you straight to the products. And don't forget, there are discount codes listed, so read the description box carefully. I'm going to love you and leave you, and see you on the next video.